Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my late E3 coverage, and this is the big one. This is the Microsoft, the Xbox press conference. So, Xbox won this year. Thanks for watching, you take care now. Xbox did okay. I was happy with Microsoft, I think they did well. I think they did better than Sony. I do, and I think that's rare, because in the last few years, Sony have figuratively and literally shit on Microsoft, in my opinion. And a lot of people accuse me of being a Microsoft fanboy, which is not true, but it can be easy to disagree with somebody and not be able to sway their opinion, so instead of understanding that opinions are different, you would rather throw the term fanboy around because it's easier to correlate in your brain, right? But the things that I would like to commend here for Microsoft is, traditionally, they have this problem with derailing the games with garbage. They like throwing smart glass at us, they like talking about subscriptions and all this other tertiary dog shit that nobody wants. Well, somebody wants, but it all vanishes in the next E3, so I guess nobody wants it, really. And they go in on areas that everybody's wondering why they're showing this and why they're not getting to the games, because they seriously need games. And this year, the only things that they really derailed with was the Game Pass. There was quite a big push for the Game Pass, but I think that that's within good reason, because not only is the Game Pass proving to be quite good value for money, but there are a lot of high-profile games available in it. So, as much as it's easy to just be like, that's just like a last-ditch effort to undercut yourself to try and make money in the long run, I think Game Pass is probably going to change the way in which a lot of people consume video games, because it's cheap, and buying games is expensive, and you can get all these experiences at will. I think Game Pass could be the future of how games are consumed. I truly do. But at the moment, I don't think we have the enough experience with it to see where it's going to go. But I think that the potential of it is huge. So them talking a little bit about that, I didn't mind too much. The charity stuff is nice to talk about, but again, you're kind of sitting there being like, come on guys, you have no exclusives, you haven't had exclusives in years, everybody's dying of old age here, you've told us to be patient, we're being patient, stop talking about all this other shit. Even though charity is a wonderful thing, of course. And then they just kind of did game after game after game after game after game after game after game. They did what Sony did last year. And I really, really like that. I respect that they were just boom, 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 boom. Dude comes out, talks with one hand repeatedly, and then more games. Game, 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 game. It was solid. The problem comes when you analyse the marketing and when you compare what the games were. So, the way they sold this to us was that it was going to be 56 titles, right? Something like 56 exclusives. And everybody's just been like, shut the fuck up. It wasn't 56 exclusive. I think it was 56 titles, something like 36 exclusives. And then when you break it all down, they're literally counting with their fingers, and they don't have enough fingers to count, because the numbers that they came up with were ridiculous. If you counted the stuff they showed, it just didn't work right. If it was a till, you weren't going home early that night, because the numbers didn't add up. And one of the things that was very exploitative in their language was this idea of exclusives. So, the standard definition for exclusive, for those that might not be aware, I'm sure you are, is this idea that you have something someone else don't. Or doesn't, sorry, that's not good English. It's an exclusive, hence the name. But there are shades to this exclusivity. We live now in a culture of games where exclusivity is timed, and exclusivity can be launch exclusive. A launch exclusive is not an exclusive. It's an exclusive for a very short period of time before it becomes ubiquitous and on every other fucking platform. It's like being first on YouTube. No one gives a shit. You're a dick. Don't you dare. So, once you look at these numbers and the way that they're pushing them, it's essentially a verbal fart. That's all it is. It's bubbles in a bathtub. It's nothing. It's, here's a game that's going to be on every console eventually. Hey, that's it. So this appeal of these exclusives is dwindling rapidly. And when you get down to it, there was about 4 actual exclusives, and none of them are coming out in any time soon. So we get back into a similar situation with where Nintendo is. With this idea of, look at all this cool shit that's exclusive, but you've got to be patient for it. We've already been patient, Microsoft. You told us to be patient. We want fucking games. We paid all this money for this massive, super heavy console that's the most powerful and expensive thing on the planet. What am I playing on it? And of course, the people who are super deep are saying, oh, I'm playing this, I'm playing this. It's like, yeah, so are fucking Sony. What's the difference? What's the kicker? What's keeping you on this console? And they don't have an answer. Because they're fanboys. So they'd rather suck a dick. A nice big green X in the gob. And the reality is, some of these titles are heavy hitters. There are some big names here that I'm going to go through. But almost all of the... There's like a third of these are on every platform. Some of the biggest announcements in this press conference aren't even exclusives. And the exclusives that they did show gave almost no information. And the information they did give wasn't that exciting. So as much as I want to compliment them a lot, because they showed nothing but games, the games that are not coming out anytime soon, and there's no hope of them ever catching Sony at this rate. There just isn't. And it's really unfortunate, because I think that Sony had a really weak start to their conference, which hurt them. And I think Microsoft, by hitting all those games, had a good advantage, but they lost it, in my opinion, when you look at just the titles that Sony were representing. I look at this list in front of me now, and there's some good stuff on it, but the only stuff I'm interested in is multi-platform, and everything else is just kind of like, oh yeah, of course that'd happen. And then I look at that Sony list, and I want to play those games. And I'm an Xbox fanboy, right? So I shouldn't be saying this, apparently. But they opened with Halo, and it didn't seem like Halo, because I was sitting with the biggest Halo fan I know, and we didn't quite cotton immediately that it was Halo. And I'm not entirely certain what that means. Because there was like deers and shit, and like big fields and all kinds of stuff. And then it kind of pulled back. And I'm assuming they were meant to be some kind of vestigial Halos, or giant onion rings. And then it was the Chief's helmet, and then it was boom, Halo Infinite. And absolutely nothing. And they didn't even talk about it either. They didn't come out and wave the dick about and be like, Halo's coming, it's going to be great, it's going to focus on this and that, it's going to be awesome. You know, all the stuff they normally do where they wave the big IP dick in your mouth. But instead, it was just, here's the next game. and we're all sat there being like, are they not going to tell us what it is? So it's just, it's a new Halo, they're working on it. And we all know right now there's not a lot of love for the devs behind Halo. They have released 2 games, and the reception for them has not been the best in the community, even though I think the games were great. But I'm not a Halo fan, and the Halo guys are hating on them and saying that, you know, they're burying what Bungie built and all this other shit. So whatever this new Halo is incredibly important to the Halo franchise, because look at it like this, right, folks? When the Xbox 360 was new, Halo was one of the biggest franchises ever. It was having the biggest launches ever. Halo 3 was bigger than Spider-Man and all this other shit at the cinemas. I remember it. It was ridiculous. It was a big deal. What happens now when you talk about Halo? Nobody gives a shit, right? It's weird. It's gone from being this massive hitter to like, oh, there's another Halo coming, and no one cares. And you would never have thought that when it was at the peak of its popularity that we'd ever think about it like that. And this is a natural thing that happens with everything, you know? Just look at flares. They're never coming back, and I own a pair. It's ridiculous. But Halo was so huge, and now it's almost like a ghost. And this was the flagship for Microsoft. This was the thing that drove force, the spear of their arsenal. And now it's almost like a joke, which is crazy, because Halo was... I hated Halo, and it was massive, you know? You can't deny it. It's crazy. So it's nice to see that they're going to do something moving forward, and hopefully it's going to be grander concept, and I wish it the best, but you're not going to see it for like a year or two. So everyone's just kind of being like, why did you show that? So they showed a bunch of stuff, and I've put these down in no particular order. But the next one was Gears 5, and it was actually written like that too. Not Gears of War 5, Gears 5. And Rod Ferguson came out, which I think is hilarious, because the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? I was a massive Gears guy back in the day. I'm not anymore. Those games were great. I think we should leave them where they are and make new things. Because I said the same in the previous video, and I'll say the same here. What Gears of War did for the 360 was so influential that it made a disenfranchised PlayStation 2 kid buy an Xbox 360. Where the fuck is that game now? Where is the game that makes you buy an Xbox One? The equivalent of that game. Where is it now? It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because of garbage like this. Instead of that new trend-setting, trailblazing title, we have sequels. And I hate it, I truly do. So Gears 5. Gears 4 was not a bad game. I liked it, it was good. It wasn't the game I wanted it to be, nor the game I think it should have been, but I found it altogether unoffensive. Gears 5 is continuing that story, only now you play as the girl. So you're playing as Kat. She was in the squad. I have no idea why this has changed. I'm assuming that they thought that the son of Marcus Phoenix was going to get a better reception, but it turns out if you write uninteresting, generic, garbage characters with nothing memorable, they will be uninteresting, garbage, generic, unmemorable characters. So they're going forward now with the female persuasion, which is the girl. And the only thing remotely interesting about that to me is that at the end of the 4th game, it showed that she had a memento from her great-grandmother, or a grandmother, which was the sign of the locusts, which is almost 100% inferring that we're maybe going to get some information as to where they came from, or maybe who Myra was, or Mira, or Mirar, or however you say that stupid queenie bitch's name that we killed in the... or we didn't kill, who knows. But you know who I mean. That's like the only part of that was even remotely interesting, because the Gears story just doesn't have any bite anymore. It doesn't. It did in the old days, but now it doesn't, so they need to do something drastic, and maybe that's what this is. But I watched this thinking to myself that if it was Anya, I'd give a shit. But it's not. It's a bunch of people I have no emotional connection with, and Marcus, someone I have a large emotional connection with. So it just feels weird. There's a disconnect in my brain. And apparently it's focusing now on this mutation between these creatures and machines. So it's turning into a new enemy type, so it's maybe moving away from the locusts, which could be interesting. Gears has always had, fun mechanics. But I don't know if it's enough. There's nothing wrong with letting a series die. There isn't. It lets you look back at it fondly and say it did a good job. Gears of War 3 was the perfect exclamation point for that series. The fact I'm saying the word Gears of War 5 makes me sad, even though technically it's Gears of War 6, which makes me even sadder. They didn't have to go out like this, and who knows, maybe this will be the best game on the planet and I'll once again be eating my words, but I don't want to see it. I want them to stop a long time ago, but nobody cares, so here we go. But again, Gears used to be massive. The releases for Gears were big deals. But it's been a long time since that. Now Gears is kind of Halo status in. It's got this big passionate following, but they're not as vocal as they once were, and they've been swallowed by these ridiculously mammoth followings now. Gears is not like Fortnite, ironically enough. They're just so different, right? You're not going to pull that audience. It's not like PUBG, it's not like COD, it never had those numbers, so we're not going to see it for 2 years probably, and maybe when we do see it, it'll blow us all away, and it needs to, but it could have easily not been on this list. But guess what? There's more. So one Gears game is not enough. Do you like those little shit dolls that you can pay far too much money for, which turn your favourite well-designed character into just this homologous piece of plastic shit that's all squunched up like you just queefed it out? Well, guess what? If you like those toys, you can buy Gears Pop, which is a Gears of War game that's all chibified and inspired by those stupid dolls that I question why any human would ever purchase. So knock yourself out, and preferably get a carrier bag and put your head in it and then save us all. But then, an even better thing, Gears Tactics. So the one thing that was missing from Halo Wars was Gears of War. It's almost the same name, right? It's Halo Wars, now it's Gears Wars. So we have Gears Tactics. It's going to be a tactical, like, movement, kind of like XCOM, kind of like a million other things, where you're commanding a team of cogs and going in there and getting shit done. And I think it said it was on PC, which is my favourite aspect of it, because it means I can play it on a console that doesn't suck dick. And it could be cool, but it's another Gears game, and does anybody really need another Gears game? You have to ask yourself the question, right? The answer is no. Say no. Say no. Right. Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice. So when this was breaking and I was watching this announcement, I thought it was Tenchu. I really did. I didn't really know what it was. There was a part of me that thought it might have been a Neo 2, which is something that I didn't mention on my Sony press conference, which people are probably going to point out, which is a really, really big announcement, even though it's a sequel. And we kind of knew it was coming. So I'll use this opportunity to speak about it now. Neo 2 got announced. I kind of expected it, but at the same time, it was cool to see, and I'm hoping Team Ninja do something good with it. I'll play the shit out of it when it comes out, but was it really a surprise? Probably not, right? That's why I ended up missing this list, which is ridiculous. I don't know how I managed to do that. It's like the only game from the Sony conference, on top of the ones that I mentioned, that is a day one purchase for me that's not multi-console. But I thought that maybe it was Neo 2, this game, or maybe Tenchu. And then the animations gave it away. Because if you know anything about From Software, there's this weird legacy laziness that is both intentional and kind of awkward and cheap, where they reuse animations. They've always done it. It's a production pipeline thing that saves money, and it's also a nice touch for nostalgia reasons and for the fans. But fundamentally, how many times are we going to see them open a door like the Asylum? It's pretty ridiculous, right? He opens a door in that trailer just like the doors in Souls. It's hilarious. When he falls down after dying, he dies in the exact same manner that you do in Souls. There's the same animation, copy-pasted, and there was a ton of it. And it was just like, oh my god, this is the new FromSoft thing. And then it said From Software, and then you're watching it and it's just like, wow, this is different. Is he doing just guards on that guy's attack and they're clashing and it's not hurting him? Did he just do a stealth assassination from mid-air? Is that a grappling hook? Did he jump? Was that a jump that didn't look stupid and involved running? Like, all this stuff happening at once and looking crazy, and it's just like, wow, I'm sold. But there's no point in me talking too much about this, folks, because I'm going to be doing a video focusing on it and kind of sharing all the stuff that I spotted. But suffice to say, it's my game of E3 by far. I saw this thing, and the more it looked less like a Souls game, the more I wanted it. And I'm really, really excited to get more information. And I read the translated interview with Miyazaki about it, and everything I'm hearing just sounds great, because it sounds such a different flow to it. I also heard about the behind scenes footage that they showed, which mentioned the stance bar that you have, which dictates, you know, how you essentially guard crush each other and get people susceptible, and then deliver these killing blows, which is kind of evidenced in the gameplay when he guard breaks the shield man and then he does the execution on him. But everything about it just seems like a more action-driven, feudal Japan-based Souls-like game that isn't the fucking sitting at bonfires, isn't the every enemy respawning bloody phantoms in your world for co-op and PvP this and PvP that. It's just a very you don't create a character, you don't pick your stats, you play a dude. They're going towards a different, more conventional manner of game, which you might be sitting there thinking, Chris, this sounds awful, I want Souls, but we've got plenty of Souls. This is something different, even though it's not. It's something old. It's something how games used to be, and they're harking back to it, so I find that really, really interesting. So I can't wait for this game. And it's coming out next year, which I'm hoping is early next year, but it probably won't be. And then they showed Forza Horizon 4. So The Division 2 also aired on Xboxes, and it was the same kind of deal, showing lots of pretty things. But Neo 2, right? Ooh, Neo 2. We knew it was coming. I'm still excited for it. They showed absolutely nothing of it, which was unfortunate. I would have loved them to show something. Because the thing is, right, they have the technology now. They have all the hard stuff done. The only thing left is the creative stuff and just the manpower and the time it takes to make all the assets. I'm hoping they go super deep and just build on it and make it amazing. And then they showed Devil May Cry 5. So a lot of people have been asking me how I feel about Devil May Cry 5. And I watched the trailer, and I was kind of shocked and kind of stunned. It was just so on the nose. So I like that Johnny Young Bosch is back. That's cool. And I love how excited Itsuno is about the game. Because he thinks he's made the best Devil May Cry, and I trust him. He has an immaculate repertoire. Like, he's seen the lows of Devil May Cry 2, he's seen the highs of Devil May Cry 3, and he's seen the accessibility of Devil May Cry 4. And it's all coming together now to make the game that people have been asking for a long time. Wasn't it 2008, 2009 when Devil May Cry 4 came out? That's a long time ago now. People are really hungry for more of this. But what I saw, I don't know. It just didn't do much for me, guys. It really didn't. But I have faith in the people making it. And I had so many questions, and once again, I'm going to be doing a focus video on this to kind of go more into my thoughts. But I'm not going to give people the answers that they want, because I'm an OG Devil May Cry player. I love this series. I've been with this series a long time. This series is the reason I play games on harder difficulties. So when I watched that trailer, there were so many parts of it when I was just kind of like, what the fuck? What? What? Why? Why? But I don't know anything about it. We haven't seen enough. When they show gameplay, it'll all make sense. But just judging from that, it looked like it were trying too hard. The entire thing. But I love that series, so I can't wait to see what it is. And I'm hoping it's half as good as Itsuno thinks it is, because he is a genius, and I have faith. So I apologise if that's not the answer you were looking for, because it almost undoubtedly isn't. But it's true, and I'm not going to lie. Then Dying Light 2 turned up, and I didn't play Dying Light 1. And it looked like Dead Island, and I don't like Dead Island. So I probably won't be playing that. But if you like zombies, and you like kicking stuff, and jumping on things, that sounds like fun, right? Then you can play this game called Dying Light 2. And I'm not. And then Terry Crews came out, and was Terry Crews for a large period of time, advertising Crackdown 3, which is almost like a joke of E3 now. It's like the fucking ghost of Christmas past. Because it's hanging over as like a guillotine, but it's never getting any closer. And I feel like they're getting to a point now where they have a game and they want to release it, but by the time they do, is any fucker gonna care? It's a strange thing, right? Crackdown was a great game. It was goofy, it was stupid, it was co-op, it like mangled a bunch of elements together and they somehow managed to work. It was janky and dumb, but that was half the charm. And I have really, really good memories of me and Aiden playing that game in co-op and kicking the shit out of bosses, and it just been really stupid. We were laughing the entire time. And then Crackdown 2 came out and it was a piece of shit and I hated it. So, from what they showed, it looks really over the top and crazy and explosive, and hopefully they're onto something really, really cool, and it could be fun. And it's an exclusive. It's a legitimate, actual exclusive too. But for all we know, it could get delayed again, and it probably already has. Once again, I haven't seen any news in 7 days, guys. This game might not even exist anymore. It could get scale-bounded. Which is a suck, but it happens, right? And at this point, Crackdown 3, Crackdown 3, Forza, Gears, and Halo are the only exclusives. So where the other 36 are, I ain't a fucking clue, right? And we're nearly at the end. So Microsoft closed with a game that isn't an exclusive. They closed with Cyberpunk 2077. And this game is everything I want from a Witcher-esque title by CD Projekt Red. Because I love the future shit, I love science fiction stuff, I love kind of cyberpunk nonsense and tech noir and all that kind of stuff. But I watched this game and it didn't look like I thought it'd look. When I think of those influences, I have a very distinct vision of it, and a lot of the times that vision is very dark. It's very Ridley Scott Blade Runner-esque. It's inspired by these endless nights, these claustrophobic streets with endlessly belching fumes and neons and rain and things like that. And this wasn't that. This was like fucking GTA 4 in the future. It was all really bright. It was almost kind of like Blomkamp-ish, you know, some kind of futuristic South Africa with it being really sunny and crappy architecture everywhere and like, you know, knackered looking decaying future. And it looks fine, it looks great, it looks exactly what you're expecting it to be, and you know the game's going to be stellar. I also found out the other day they're aiming for no load screens, which sounds amazing, but it makes me wonder what they're going to do to mask the loading, because an awkward and contrived manner of masking loading is just as dodgy as a load screen, and I'm hoping they just don't have it. If it's one big boot at the beginning, that's fine, because many games have shown that that can be really, really useful and really, really good for immersion. But that's pretty much the end of my notes for Xbox, guys. I think Microsoft did much better this year because they showed a lot of games, but most of what they showed is available on all systems, and I still think that they're missing those killer titles that Sony has, and that is a problem. But I think it's much closer this year, just 100% because of the lack of confidence that Sony showed. And I thought it was really uncharacteristic, and the whole Last of Us being separate to the rest of the thing, leading to an intermission that killed all momentum and sold us a bunch of information we've already been given, was bad. It was really bad. I was concerned. But E3 as a whole this year has actually been more of a positive experience for me, because traditionally E3 is nothing but disappointment, and you might have watched all of these videos and just think, well, Chris, you sound disappointed in all of them. And there are disappointments, but there's some new IPs this time. There's some new stuff coming. There's some things I didn't expect. There's some games that we knew were coming that are exciting to watch for, and there are some sequels we've waited for a long time. So I think they're hitting a lot of different avenues. I don't know if there's anything that's massively killer in the way that it's been in the past, other than the stuff, you know, that really appeals to me, things like Sekiro and the Ghost of Tsushima and stuff. But I don't know if they're as big as something like what God of War was when that was revealed and everybody got excited for that. Do you see any killer title here that's going to crush everything, that's going to lead? You know, obviously Last of Us is going to be fantastic, but is it really as evocative and as affecting as it was when we first saw it, when it was a new thing? Because that's an important question, right? You know, we've got a lot of continuing series, a lot of DLCs, some VR extravaganzas, some interesting concepts, some long-dead franchises coming back. It's a decent mix of a lot of things, and it's a lot to be optimistic about. I would love to see more effort on new things, but in today's age of the expense of making video games, new means risk, and risk is almost always unwanted. So as much as I hate it, I understand it. But that was E3 2018, guys. This might be the first video up, so this is mad confusing, but it's the last video that I made. What did you think? Are you stoked for the coming year of games? Is it a strong year to come? Because this year's been kind of bad, right? It's been kind of dead in a lot of ways. This has been a weak year in video games. Has this recovered it? Has this helped tide you over for the coming greatness? Or is it just too little too late? I don't know. I think there's a lot to be excited for. And hopefully even more surprises down the line. But thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.